Good morning, Morning Musings by Melinda. Thank God it's Friday. I hope you had a good week. I want to talk to you today about closures, and there's different types of closures that I want to talk to you about. A lot of times it's difficult to put closure around the end of a relationship, maybe not necessarily a romantic relationship, or maybe it's a relationship that you've had with a sibling or with a friend, or maybe even somebody passed away and you don't know how to put closure around it, which actually is pretty impossible. There's no real closure when you've lost someone, especially if you've lost someone recently to COVID, and it seems so surreal that it's happened, and it may have happened very quickly. If you've lost someone to drug addiction, an overdose, or to suicide, closure is not a word to use, especially when you're trying to give some kind of sympathy or empathy to someone who suffered such a loss. You can't try to give them closure. You know, the only thing that they can do is understand that there is life after life and that there's no such thing as death, and have a relationship with their loved one on the other side in a way that makes sense. You know, people from the other side are constantly giving you signs, whether it be in a song, a butterfly, a hummingbird, coins, lights going on and off, some kind of serendipitous event, time on a clock, 11:11. Those are things that people from the other side use frequently, not to give you closure, but to give you a brand new start, to connect with them in a different way, to know that they're not gone, really, that they're there with you all the time. And I feel like that's part of my job, is to help people understand that there is life after life, and that your loved one can see you and what's happening in your life, and you can continue to have a relationship. But what about with people here on the earth plane? How do you create some closure? Well, for one thing, you know, you can have closure without having closure with a person. For some reason, most people think that closure is something that we have to sort out with somebody else. It's, not necessarily something that you're going to be gifted by someone that you need closure with. So you have to create it on your own. It's a journey that you have to take from within yourself. Sometimes you have to do that through meditation or journaling. Sometimes you just have to, be in a place of practicing mindfulness. Don't we all want closure on COVID right now? It's something that we're really yearning. And don't we all want closure on the divisiveness between us right now? And it's something that we just can't seem to wrap our heads around, that we're so divided as a country. And the only way we're going to get through that is through kindness and honoring each other and respecting each other. Sometimes when you've had a relationship that has not worked out, and again, I just talked to someone recently who's grieving over a fight that she had with a sib and the sibling, and she had ugly words. And, sometimes those things happen in a way that you have to recognize that a toxic person in your life is a toxic person in your life, whether they share your DNA or not, and that the closure might have to be something that you do on your own, and that you have to let the grieving process unravel on its own. A lot of times people have grief that they stuff deep inside of them. They stay busy, or they do something that distracts them, and they don't really embrace the grief and allow it to flow through. It just gets stuffed. And when grief like that gets stuffed, of course, it turns into things like heart disease and cancer and other kinds of things. So you can't be afraid to grieve. You've got to let that process happen. You've got to cry when you need to cry, and you have to, allow yourself to feel those feelings without pushing them away, because it's the only way to process, okay? Sometimes you have to get professional help to do that. When you're having a relationship closure, you have to kind of go cold turkey on it. You know how often when we have a relationship that doesn't work out, that we stalk the other person on Facebook or Instagram, or look them up or whatever? It's not shutting the door in your mind. It's keeping a crack open, and it just does nothing to serve you. And if you're talking to someone else about the person that you're trying to seek closure with, and that person has a relationship with the other, and they continue to tell you what's going on in that other person's life, then that isn't closure either. So you have to set a boundary and ask whomever it is that shares that contact with you to please honor that boundary and to keep it to themselves if they have knowledge, okay? You have to get rid of any remnants that you may have of them. It's interesting that when you come together in a second marriage, sometimes you bring in things from a past marriage, and without recognizing it can really bother your current partner, because actually objects hold energy too. And you may love something, but it may bother your partner terribly, and if you don't do something about it, it's very dishonoring to your current partner. So that means that the door is still open energetically to the former partner. Things have energy in ways that you don't recognize, so you have to kind of look at how it all kind of plays out energetically and what it really means to you. Pour out your feelings in an unsent written letter, okay? And so that you can write out feelings. That's so important, okay? Stop blaming yourself for anything. Reason, season, lifetime. Sometimes friends come in for a reason or a season. Sometimes friends come in for a lifetime. And sometimes same thing with romantic relationships. Hi, Jeffrey. So it's a matter of understanding that you have to process things as a tool for your level of spiritual success. What do you do to grow through any kind of relationship in order to get closure? How do you reframe something? If you were a jackass during that relationship and you don't take personal responsibility and make changes for the next relationship, then you've really not accomplished much, okay? So that's one thing that you have to look at. Accept that you may never get an apology from someone. You know, you may really work hard at trying to get an apology and think that you've taken responsibility for your share and you're apologized, and the other person continues to just stand there and shame and blame you. Then that's a toxic relationship too, and that closure is not something that you can do together. You've got to do that on your own by knowing that you made the amends necessary, and if the other person doesn't take it in the spirit in which it's intended, you have to let it go, okay? And then you just make new memories where you had old ones, sometimes a situation, especially in a romantic relationship, where people get out old pictures and reminisce, and they kind of re-break their heart all over again. It's almost like they keep, ripping open the Band-Aid on a wound to see if it still hurts instead of just letting it heal. So I hope I gave you some good positive thoughts on things about closure. Again, if you've lost someone, a loved one, to suicide or drug addiction, or something that is very difficult to wrap your head around, don't let somebody tell you that there's going to be closure. There will be movement of energy for sure, but not closure. And if you want to hear more about that, please join me tomorrow with Eric's House as I get interviewed and do some spiritual connections at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'll look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day.